I got to this area, I looked up and I couldn't see horizon. And so I just kept going, and all of a sudden, the whole world just opened up in front of me. I was standing on the edge of this cliff, opening up to this huge, folded, anticlinal structure. And it was one of the most breathtaking views I've ever seen. And it was so quiet, so peaceful. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And it just kind of jumped up and bit me. And that's when I knew this is like absolutely what I need to be doing.
Welcome to the Power of PennWest. I'm your host, Dr. John Anderson, President of PennWest University. Whether you're a current student, a proud alum, or just curious about the PennWest community, welcome. Please stay tuned as we explore the stories, achievements, and experiences of the people who bring life to our campuses in California, Clarion, Edinburgh, and online. Welcome to the Power of PennWest podcast. In the month of April, we celebrate Earth Day. And on the Power of PennWest podcast, we're diving into the wonders of our planet by exploring the great outdoors through the lenses of geology, science, and parks and recreation. Today, we'll uncover the fascinating stories behind the rocks beneath our feet, the science that helps us understand our environment, and the parks that offer us a chance to connect with nature. Our guests today share their love of outdoor learning and adventures and highlight the importance of preserving our natural world. First up is Dr. Candice Riley, who teaches management, parks and recreation management, and event planning management at the California campus. Dr. Riley believes that parks and leisure are essential components of our overall well-being and encourages students to examine the role of parks play in their communities. Dr. Riley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Next up, Dr. Kyle Frederick is a professor of geology at PennWest and the president of the Pittsburgh Geological Society. He teaches a wide variety of courses, primarily related to hydrology, water resources, and environmental geology, and leads an annual field course to points of geological interest in the United States. Dr. Frederick, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Next is Aaron Barnes, a geology and earth science student at our PennWest Edinburgh campus. In addition to his studies in geophysics, environmental geology, and mineralogy, Aaron has also presented at several local and regional conferences. Aaron, thank you for joining us.
Of course, thank you for having me.
And finally, we have Jesse Lewis, an environmental biology major at the Clarion campus. Jesse serves as the president of the local chapter of the Society for Conservation Biology. While outdoors, Jesse enjoys hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, and learning about wildlife management and conservation. Jesse, thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So this is going to be a lot of exciting times. I love to be outside. I love the great outdoors. It's so nice that spring is setting in, at least somewhat of spring is setting in. We still got a lot of rain and actually snow flurries yesterday morning. So at least we see the sun on occasion now. So I'm looking forward to the conversation all about the great outdoors. Most of our listeners are interested in your history and background, how you became to do what you do, and what it is that first attracted you to the great outdoors. Dr. Riley, let's start with you. How did this become a passion or interest of yours?
Well, it's a funny story, actually, because I sort of happened into this field. My background, or at least when I went to undergraduate, I was more interested in health sciences. And then I had to take a chemistry class in my undergraduate class, and that changed my perspective on things. But I always had a love of parks, hospitality, all of that. So we were fortunate enough at my undergraduate to have that class, and I had some great professors that mentored me and taught me all about parks, the different benefits that we get from parks. And so that love just was instilled in me and carried me through all through my academic career.
That's excellent. Tell us a little bit about that academic career. Where did you get your degrees and what did you study in those areas?
All right, so my undergraduate's at Concord University. It is a small campus, much like our California, Clarion, Edinburgh campuses in Southern West Virginia. And that degree is in recreation and tourism management. And then I did my master's and PhD at West Virginia University. The master's was in recreation, parks, and tourism resources. And then the PhD's in forest resource sciences with an emphasis in recreation, parks, and tourism resources.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Riley. Dr. Frederick, let's go to you next. What prompted this passion and interest of yours?
Mine was not a real direct line. I grew up out in the country, in farm country in southeastern Wisconsin. So I was really embedded throughout my childhood within this kind of environmental setting without even knowing it, just water resources and soil health, not thinking about it in those contexts. And then I went to college originally as a business major. And after some wayward years and not being interested in that, I ended up at University of Wisconsin at River Falls in a geology course at a school that was known as Moo U. And so my geology kind of started from an agricultural bent, and I just fell in love with the idea of geology and everything that it encompassed. That first geology class, every single topic was more interesting than the last. And as I took more classes, I got more and more interested. And during my time in school, I did a lot of hiking, a lot of field trips, and a lot of exploring on my own. I bartended my way through school, so during the day I would be outside all the time. I did some landscaping work, so that was really kind of fitting in with this idea of being outside and experiencing what's around me in a different light than just kind of looking past it.
That's great. And tell us a little bit about that academic journey. What degrees do you have and where did you earn those?
I did get my geology bachelor's degree at Wisconsin River Falls. It's a small school. It's actually very much like PennWest, California for Wisconsin. And I did get I had a minor in hydrology, which was a lot of environmental applications. And I worked in some consulting and some environmental work for a county in Minnesota during my time, shortly after graduation. But what really did it was, for a geology degree back then, you needed to go to what was known as field camp. And it was anywhere from 5 to 8 weeks, depending on what school you did it with. They essentially throw you into the desert and ask you to become a geologist. And that was it. I was done at that point. I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to teach it because I so much enjoyed working with my fellow students in that experience. And from there, I went on to the University at Buffalo. I did my PhD. I went straight to PhD. I had a great opportunity to work through an EPA grant, and I developed a novel approach to groundwater modeling. So I kept that kind of environmental water resources angle through my PhD, and we did a really amazing project with a whole bunch of engineers and geographers. I think we got 6 or 7 PhDs out of it among the group, developing these novel tools for groundwater modeling.
Oh, that's really interesting. One thing since coming to Pennsylvania I've noticed is we have a lot of water. There are a lot of rivers, a lot of lakes. I spent time in Utah where water is almost non-existent. We can hardly spell it out there. And then I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time in Georgia where there's the water wars between Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama have gone on for decades about who gets to pull how much water out and where they're going to divert it. So yeah, I've had a chance to watch water in a lot of different instances. So it's great to have you on here. Jesse, let's go to you next. How did you pick your major as a student entering Penn West? What prompted you and what interested you in that area?
What actually interests me in the environmental biology or ecology field is an initial job shadow I had whenever I was a junior in high school. I job shadowed a wildlife biologist with the U.S. Forest Service in Marionville, and I got to witness timber rattlesnake population management via mark recapture using pit tags and also radio telemetry. So I got to be very up close and personal with these venomous snakes that oftentimes get a really bad rap, and really got to see them for what they were, which are quite docile creatures that really like hooked me. So from there, seeing the type of work that can be done directly within wildlife is what steered me towards this degree. And then how I ended up at Clarion was I am from Clarion. So I had a little bit of a connection within the school already, and already connected with some of the professors that made me want to be there.
That's interesting, Jesse. I'll tell you, getting close to a rattlesnake would probably cause me to leave the profession, leave the area instead of being attracted to it. What was it about those snakes that you like so much?
I can talk about that forever, but it's the stigma that they already have of being very feared. You know, there's venomous snake that oftentimes people don't get to see for what they are. If you run into them, it's usually you're getting rattled at. and you don't know where it's at, so you get surprised. So being able to see them just interact with their habitat and environment themselves and really interact up close, handling them, working with them, it's something that you really realize that they're just like us. They have each snake has their own personality. They're just trying to live their life and they just have a unique way of getting their own food with their venom. So I think that's something that I kind of connected with, and the more I work with them, because I've continued to work with them throughout my time in college, that I just realized that they're more of just these very complex, interesting creatures that oftentimes get a really bad rap.
Got it. Thank you very much, Jesse. Aaron, tell us a little bit about your story and your path to studying geology and earth sciences.
I would say the main drive kind of came out of my 10th grade year at high school. So come summertime, my grandpa was like, "Do you surprise me? He's like, do you want to go on a mission trip really quick? We're gonna go to Guatemala." And I was like, okay, sure. So we went to Guatemala. We were there for a week. The first 5, 6 days, we were just building houses, distributing food. And then on the last day, they're like, all right, we can go to the ancient ruins or we can go to a volcano. And where we were staying at was in Antigua, Guatemala, and you're centered around three massive volcanoes. And I was like, we'll go climb a volcano. So the way up on the trip, you just got to see all these beautiful sceneries and all of these igneous deposits. At the time, I had no clue. There was hydroelectricity. It was gorgeous out there. And then as we made our way up further up the volcano, I just started appreciating it more. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I'm walking on something that formed hundreds of millions of years ago. And then once we reached the top, there was active flows and everything. The bottom of my boots melted. I got to cook some marshmallows over open magma or lava. So that kind of is as far as scenery and physicalness, to me, that really hooked me. And then when you're at the top of these things, you look out and you can see the entire world. The air is just cleaner and you're just looking around yeah, I just climbed up a volcano. That's cool. That's where the physical aspect of my motivation came from. And then come senior year, I was like, all right, I want to be a police officer. And my goal for a job was to have something that would keep me on my feet and keep me moving. And I wanted to be able to see the world. And my teacher was like, have you ever thought about geology? And I was like, geology? I was like, well, I've climbed a volcano a couple years ago. And then I ended up visiting Edinburgh's campus where I was introduced to the professors. I met Dr. Strafford, who's my advisor now. And when I walked in there, I just felt at home, and the subject itself just really interested me. And even in general, being able to quantify how much discharge is coming out of a stream, or how much this entire continent's going to shift over a period of 100 years, 1,000 years, whatever the interval is. To me, it fascinated me. So that's definitely what hooked me in.
That's great. Once you graduate, where do you see your career going?
I would love to either go for a master's or PhD. My end goal is something in the realm of exploration geology, so either geophysics or geochemistry. I'd really like to be able to be put in positions where they're like, here's an undiscovered part of land, go out there, map it, figure out what's going on. To me, that's a dream job, going where no one else has gone and seeing these things and figure out all of these different parts of nature.
That's great. Jesse, what about you? Once you graduate, what do you want to do? Where do you see your career going?
Definitely in the realm of wildlife management. Ultimately, I would like to be the active working person to develop management plans and habitat modifications to help increase wildlife populations. Exactly what that looks like, I'm not sure yet because there's so many different realms that could go, but definitely probably within game species and also non-game species to both increase people's recreation use via hunting or fishing or whatever, but also because increasing people's recreation use will also help divert more people back towards conservation and habitat management because ultimately hunters and anglers and just people in the outdoors are the people that are working the most to conserve the land. So that's kind of another realm I'd like to work in, is trying to get more people involved in outdoor recreation like that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Jesse. Let's next go Dr. Riley and then Dr. Frederick. Let's talk a little bit about the classroom experience. So many of our students each semester have the chance to sit in a classroom with you and learn a lot about your area of expertise. What is that classroom experience like, and what do you teach? Dr. Riley?
In the past, I've taught parks and recreation for diverse populations where we talk about the different diverse groups and things that may, what we call constraints, prevent people from participating in the outdoors. And then we talk about how, like, what we can do to welcome people or have policies in place, actions put into place to make an area more inclusive, whether it is for individuals with disabilities or someone that belongs to a race or ethnic minority, where there may be instances of discrimination and all of that. So that's one aspect that I teach. One class I teach is Introduction to Rec and Leisure as well, where it's sort of an overview of all things parks and recreation, where we talk about sort of the history, some of the leisure legacies from past societies with parks and recreation. And then we also do get into things like impacts and the need for conservation, preservation, natural resources. We talk about sort of the mental health benefits of being outdoors. We look at what sort of agencies are facilitating these types of services, like your YMCAs, your Park Service, Forest Service, all those different entities. So, yeah, the Introduction to Recreation and Leisure course sort of covers a wide range. And then there's more of the specific areas, like I said, with the diverse populations. And then there's a course I teach, Commercial Recreation Management, where it gets into the resorts, the ski areas, theme parks, and that side of things. It also talks a little bit about event planning as well, like some of the events that happen at resorts. And then there are also the outdoor rec courses that I've taught where it's about planning parks, it's about managing the resources, the natural resources in an area. So it covered, like I said, there's a wide range of topics that a lot of my parks and rec courses teach. Like I said, anywhere from event planning management to having a commercial rec business to working with diverse groups. So it's a wide range of things that are offered.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. Dr. Frederick, how about the courses that you teach?
Being one of only two faculty in the geology program, we kind of run the gamut. We have a full licensure preparatory program, so we cover all the classes. And so I teach most of the environmental and water resources and what we call soft rock classes. So things like sedimentary rocks and soils. I'm very enthusiastic about geology. I love it all. And I try to share that enthusiasm with my students in those classes that are lecture driven, but many of our classes have labs. And that's really where a lot of the learning comes in. And my philosophy there is, let's get our hands dirty. That means a lot of different things. In soils, it literally means getting your hands dirty, but there are other classes where we're doing a lot of active measurements. I try to get them outside as much as possible. Sometimes I give them assignments where they're just expected to where I say, you have to get outside and you have to make these measurements and bring it back into class, collect water samples, things of that nature. So we have, my hydrology class, I teach a groundwater class, watershed management, sedimentology, we have soils classes. So there's quite a variety in my half of the geology program. And then my colleague teaches more of what we call hard rock geology.
As opposed to hard rock music. He teaches
Exactly.
the hard rock geology. That's great. And you've got the soft rock piece. We'll be right back after this message.
At PennWest University, we're making college make sense again for people who maybe thought college wasn't the answer. We're making college practical with programs tied to in-demand jobs that prepare you for success right away. We're making college accessible by breaking down barriers and offering more choices. We're making college approachable with faculty who understand where you're coming from and help you get where you're going. At PennWest, we're making college valuable again for people just like you. Learn more at pennwest.edu.
So all of you love the outdoors. You've committed your career to the outdoors. Tell us a little bit about the most epic outdoor experience that you have had. When you were on top of a mountain somewhere, seeing some rocks, doing a hike, what was that like? Where were you when you just looked back and thought life can't get any better? Aaron, let's start with you. What is the most epic experience you've had in the mighty outdoors?
Mine was with Dr. Frederick, and it was my first like semester, second semester as a geology student, so I wasn't too familiar with it. But I chose the Black Hills as my research project, and it was cool. Anyways, so we made our way up the mountain, and at the top of it is this like large fire tower. And up there, the air was just like so like crisp and clean. And we were just looking over these like beautiful mountains and like valleys, and it was breathtaking to see. And all the other students around me were also like in the same boat. So I felt very like a very unified moment. And even on the way down, like we were just cruising, but stopping to take pictures. So for me, that was definitely my like peak, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm here right now moment.
That's great. You had the chance to have that with a faculty member. That's a
Yeah.
fantastic story. Jesse, what about your experience outdoors?
That's a hard question to answer, because I feel like I've had a lot of moments where I'm like, this is just cool. Probably one of the ones that stand out the most to me is actually a hunting experience, hunting wild turkeys. And if you like wild turkeys, in order to hunt them, you're calling them. Like you have a mouth call or something, and you're communicating with these birds and more or less trying to outwit them to get them to come in. Well, there's one time I was just hunting and turkeys gobble. I'm sure you're familiar. And one thing that people don't get to experience often is whenever they gobble up close, you can actually feel it. This very deep rumble that you can feel the ground vibrate and you can really feel it in your chest. I was working these birds and, calling to them, making conversation with them as kind of the best way to put it. Whenever they came in, there was three of them and they were probably 10 yards away and were just going crazy where I couldn't see them, but you could feel them like so much. And one of them ended up coming and strutting, and when they do that, they make another noise called spitting and drumming. So they quite literally make like a spit noise, like spits, and then they just do like a dom, and then that's another thing you can just feel. So it was just a surreal experience to have this conversation with these birds for probably like 35, 40 minutes, and then eventually get them to be right on top of you to where you can just feel their presence before you can even see them. And that's probably one of the most exciting moments I've ever had in the outdoors.
That's great. And so few people get the opportunity to experience that. Jesse, thank you
Definitely.
for sharing it.
Definitely.
Dr. Riley, what's your epic outdoor experience?
When you asked that question, the first one that popped into my mind was an experience I had in grad school. I did my dissertation work out west in Oregon. And so one day, a group of us went to the redwoods. We had like a day off, and so we went to the redwoods. And so that was my first experience ever seeing the redwoods and just these massive trees. Some of them were a little hollowed out you could walk into. And so it was just mind blowing. I live in West Virginia. There's trees everywhere, but trees of that size and that magnitude was it was something that, I'll never forget.
That's great. Dr. Frederick, how about you?
Mine is an easy one. I was at field camp after I had graduated with my bachelor's. I had gone to field camp. We were in the last field site, and I had gone as a lone person, and a lot of the students knew each other from other schools. They had gone as pairs and groups of threes and fours. And I was really intimidated to start with, but I saw that my undergrad program had prepared me very well, even in comparison to schools like University of Texas and Oklahoma State, these kind of famous geology programs. And so we get to the last map site, and you had to earn the opportunity to map a far section of the map site that we were working. It was 3 days long, and if you didn't do well enough in days 1 and 2, you couldn't go to the next section of the map. And out of 40 students, only a handful of us were allowed to go to that last section. And I didn't know what to expect. It wasn't really all that related to the earlier parts of the map. And so I just put my head down and I started hiking. And Aaron knows what that looks like. He's been behind me on several of these, but you put your head down and you go. And I got to this area, I looked up and I couldn't see horizon. And so I just kept going, and all of a sudden the whole world just opened up in front of me. I was standing on the edge of this cliff, opening up to this huge folded anticlinal structure. And it was one of the most breathtaking views I've ever seen. And it was so quiet, so peaceful. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And it just kind of jumped up and bit me. And that's when I knew this is like absolutely what I need to be doing.
That is a great story. Thank you. So, what advice would the four of you give to someone who hasn't spent a lot of time outdoors, has kind of been in one of the other disciplines, working inside, working in an office, something like that? What is your best pitch and your best invitation to invite them outside to see what the world has to offer? Aaron, let's hear from you first. What would you recommend? What would you say?
I would say one of the easiest ways to get involved with the outdoors is just finding like a small activity that you like to do, whether it be bike riding, jogging, swimming. I have some friends that are like anti-outdoors, like you're not going to catch them camping. But I started getting them into like disc golf, and now they're the ones texting me like, "Oh, we need to go on a hike. Like we're gonna go play some disc golf." I'm like, "Okay, cool." Or just like pickleball, anything like that. And then from there, you kind of just start developing like a I would say like an interest in the outdoors a little bit, at least in my experience, that is. So I would just say find a hobby that you find interesting. It doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't have to be super physical. It could be photography, which is also a beautiful way to get to know nature. But yeah, so I would say hobbies.
That's great. Thanks, Aaron. Dr. Riley, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Aaron said. Yeah, just finding an activity. And that's even something we talk about in the Introduction to Recreation and Leisure class, where, yeah, just things is taking pictures on your phone of sunsets or of flowers that you see can start to spark that interest in outdoors. So, yeah, definitely starting small. You know, you don't have to plan like a grand trip to Yellowstone National Park. It could be something just in your local park. It could be just something as walking outdoors as well. So, yeah, just starting small. Like I said, finding a fun outdoor hobby that is of your interest. Like Aaron said, you can develop that interest in it. There may be walking clubs or photography clubs that are in your area that you can join as well. And then, just sort of cultivate it from there.
Thank you, Jesse.
I'm just going to build off what they've been saying because I mean I fully agree, but it's also if you can find someone that's already doing this stuff outside and getting them to show you what they're doing, someone that has a lot of knowledge of whatever they're outside doing with or just really passionate about it, it helps rub off that passion on the people. I think that is very important, and I've seen it with several people that have started a new hobby or whatnot just by being with people that are very passionate about this stuff. So, and another thing is just do it. Like try things. You may not like everything you do outside, but just keep trying things, and I would very confidently say you will find something you enjoy.
Thanks. And Dr. Frederick?
This was all very well stated. I agree with all three of them. And so I'm going to add something a little bit different. Don't check the weather. Just go out with some contingencies. And so I always tell my students, you should always have a rain jacket and always have reasonable footwear on if you're going to be outside. So whatever you're going to be doing, don't worry about the weather. Just like Jesse said, just do it. Don't use material limitations to keep you from those types of experiences because we see this with camping and hiking and things like that a lot. But even just a walk around the block, who cares if it's a little bit blustery and it might rain? Just have a rain jacket with you and put it on and spend some time out there because that's when you see things that are going to be new to you. Experiencing a million worms on the sidewalk is something that might trigger some interest in you. I don't know what it is, but it's different than, walking around in an environment that you always know and always feel safe in. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone.
That's
I
great.
think that is like one of the most important things, like what Dr. Frederick said, is a lot of people, they don't realize what they're missing out on. I've been given a like similar speech like what Dr. Frederick said is like you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you're going to see things that are like completely out of your ordinary. So I think once people have a little taste of that, that's when the real passion develops.
That's excellent. And what's that old saying? There's no bad weather, just bad clothing. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. Is there anything you wanted to share we haven't covered so far as we prepare to wrap up? Dr. Frederick, anything from you?
If you don't mind, I just would like to plug that, we really have so many immersive experiences here at PennWest that don't get the light of day and maybe as much or as often as they should. And, I'll use our summer geology trip as an example. The students, every student I talk to is like, oh, it changed my life. And it isn't anything that I'm doing. It's just getting them into that experience. And I think all of our programs in some form or another are offering experiences that students are being triggered by, and it changes their perspective. And so I'm really glad you're doing this podcast. I'm glad you're involving students and faculty, because these are the stories that need to be told.
That's excellent. I couldn't agree more. Jesse, any final words from you?
The only thing I want to just add on to everything that's kind of been talked about is emphasizing the importance for people just to be connected with nature and the environment, no matter what way that is. My way has always been hunting and having that dependence on harvesting animals for food and, having that really deep connection. But no matter like what your connection is, like building that is like super important. Whether it's just watching birds or like anything. It's like the one thing I would emphasize the most if anyone pulls anything out of this podcast.
Thank you. And Dr. Riley?
What I have to say sort of builds off of what Dr. Frederick said. I think this podcast is a great way to showcase some of the more not well-known, in a sense, programs, courses, what have you. Oftentimes, when I advise students and I tell them about the classes that I teach, they're like, you can get a degree in that, you can take classes in that. I didn't know. So this is a great way to build a sense of awareness that there's more out there that you can do, besides whether it's STEM or even just like general business, that sort of thing. Like I said, there's other directions, other paths that you can take, just like Aaron and Jesse talked about as well. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention too, in talking about people getting more involved in the outdoors, there are organizations, even on campus, you have like the campus recreation, the Heron Rec Center, like here on the Cal campus, where even if, people may feel as though, oh, I don't know how to do something, there's lessons, there's other organizations also that help people become more involved in the outdoors, even if it's through just lessons on how to fish or how to, what you should take with you for hiking and things. Because oftentimes that can be a little intimidating to people when it's like, oh, I have to hike, and they have that picture of someone like hiking on the Appalachian Trail with the big backpack and all that stuff. But yeah, so again, just kind of going back to that sense of, not being afraid to get out there and do something. There's organizations out there that can help you.
Thank you. And Aaron, any final words from you?
Kind of like what Dr. Frederick said, is just like use your resources that the school's providing to us. I mean, we have so many awesome clubs. I think as long as you're willing to like push yourself, go outdoors, I think that there's a whole world out there to explore, and you just have to go out and do it. I mean, we live in such a fast-paced like society. I can go on my phone and I can text my entire family in 2 seconds, but at the same time, I could go on a hike and be by myself and just, I don't know, I would say outside is a very spiritual experience. It's very calming, and I hope people can understand that, share it, and then develop a passion for it.
That is great advice to end on, Aaron. Thank you so much. This has been so fun to speak with each of you about the power of the great outdoors. Let's finish up this podcast with an invitation to anyone who's listening to turn your computer off, grab a rain jacket, put some nice shoes on, and go enjoy the outdoors no matter the weather. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Power of PennWest podcast.